Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the CD Sport Podcast with me, Kerry Davis. Joining us today, we've got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, BJJ Betty Broadhurst. How you doing, Betty?
Hi, Kerry. I'm doing great today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on and giving up your time to speak to me. We were just saying you've just come back from training now, have you?
That's right. I'm here on the East Coast of the U.S., so we have a noon class. So I usually try to catch the noon class. It's not as crowded as evenings, and usually I'm there about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then come home and shower and change. And then it's about 3 p.m. Eastern time where I am right now.
Beautiful. Do you train every day, do you?
Do I train at Diego?
No, every day.
Yes, I train daily unless it's a specific no-gi. Sometimes it's not at lunch. And so if it's no-gi night, I'll wait and go in the evening. But yeah, I might take one rest day, but I pretty much train every day. Just because it's, and even if I'm don't go and roll 100%, I go for the technique part, or I go to help a lot because we have a lot of white belts. We're in a sort of a transient area in Norfolk, Virginia, and there's a large naval base here. So we have a lot of people that come in with the U.S. Navy that are stationed for like a year or 2 years. We have a lot of people that are wrestlers or people that took jiu-jitsu from their home and then they're away from home. So you get a lot of transient people that aren't going to be there permanently, or people that are looking for something to do to stay physically active. So it's good that I try to go, even if I'm not myself training hard. It's nice to be able to help people with techniques like how to shrimp, how to, put your hooks in, little things like that while there's teeth. I can help some of the beginners. So, I just try to, wherever but it helps me too, because I still get to roll with people and demonstrate things. And it makes you feel smart when you're an old lady showing a young man something.
You'd be like a little celebrity in the gym with you now?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because when kind of a lot of the things that went viral happened, that's what everybody would say when I would go in the gym. And I said, it's the same me. I'm here every day. I'm training every day. I didn't do anything but go compete. And I didn't realize it was like that unusual, because I guess I've been competing. I've been training for 11 years. So I'm used to hardly ever having a match, or always having to go down to like fight women that are 30 years old if it's local competitions, or at masters, the pickings get very slim when you get up to my age. I mean, you might, especially for a higher belt. I mean, now that women have been involved more, the masters program's growing, like masters 2 and 3. There are a lot of blue belt women. I mean, before, when I was a blue belt, my first tournament was, I think, 2016 or 15 or 16 there. And I had to go down to like master 4. And there was one lady that was smaller than me and 5 or 6 years younger. And she was the oldest person there besides me. And I texted her on Facebook or something, and we agreed. And so I went down to her age group just so I could have a match. And that was real significant for me, because it was my first World's Masters, and it was before Masters was, I guess, as popular as it is now. It's grown into such a big competition now. As people age, of course, that's exactly what's going to happen. But back then, it was kind of like the old folks convention. I mean, it wasn't in the Las Vegas Convention Center. It was in some high school auditorium, and it was mainly just people that still weren't competing at Worlds, because people in their 30s were still competing at Worlds, and jiu-jitsu had not hit the growth spurt it had. But it was really nice, because after the match, and she won, and it was my first match ever, like on a world platform kind of thing. And I started crying, even though I lost, but I was so happy because I had done it, which was one of my goals, is to compete at the world level. And the umpire referee stopped the next match and got them to take a picture of me and him, and he posted it on his Instagram. He was Brazilian, about how he had been begging his young wife, who's like 28, to train, and she wouldn't. And he said, here's this lady that's 55 or 56 years old out here competing. And that was blue belt. So, and he posted it on Instagram, and then luckily some professor tagged my professor, and it got back to me because I didn't know his name. He just wanted a picture of the two of us. So that was, that was real special. And then the only masters I've missed as far as in the years, it's been the year of COVID. The first year I did not compete then.
Yeah.
I think they held it, but it was in Florida, and so few people. I mean, the chances of even getting a match were next to nothing. So anyway,
I think during the COVID time, it was just a bit of a mess for all sports, wasn't it? It's not just jiu-jitsu.
Europeans couldn't come to the US, and it was a very bright, or parts of Europe, like one of the athletes that I worked with that went to European trials that trained in the US, Oliver Taza. He did the European trials in Poland, but then he couldn't come back to the US because it was one of the countries that were banned for coming to the US. So he had to go back to his homeland, Canada, quarantine 2 weeks, and then come back into the US. The US would not let him board a flight. And so, it caused a lot of trouble for a lot of people. I'm so glad that things are opening up now. So much better.
Did you say you train with Oliver Taza, your partner?
No, I have a company that I started about 3 years into doing jiu-jitsu called Roll Forever. And it makes rash guards and mainly like no-gi gear, I think hoodies and joggers and rash guards. And it funds, 100% of the funds go to help athletes that are competition professional athletes and a couple of masters athletes. And I also book seminars for them, and then they get a percentage of the profits, and I handle all that. And it was a way I wanted to be involved with jiu-jitsu and give them opportunity. And it started out doing seminars. So I would bring a lot of the athletes to North Carolina and Virginia, and I would get some of the larger gyms to let me use their mat space, and they would get to the promotion of that. It was the seminar was being put on by Roll Forever, the name of my company, but it was being hosted by, and they'd get their name on the poster. And over the years, we had some wonderful, I was able to bring JT Torres and Bernardo Feria and Keenan and Gordon. I had Gordon twice.
Wow.
Nikki Ryan and Ethan Krellinston, Oliver, Clark Gracie. So this thing just kind of grew. And so I was just doing it regionally. And then as things have progressed, people contact me now, and I will book their seminars for a couple of them. But so the company's grown, and I sponsor about 8 athletes that are active competitors that are younger, that are really, on the competition scene. So Oliver is one of those athletes.
Wow. Yeah. When you said about Oliver, because he actually beat it was in Poland for the ADCC trials, right?
Yeah. Yes.
He beat my friend Tom Barry, who's Welsh as well, in the final. I think it was a decision. I think it was. Have you heard of Tom Barry? Chimpy Jitsu.
Was that this trials?
Yeah, in Poland. In Poland,
I just watched the finals. They were in Poland because that's what I was talking about. He couldn't get on a plane from Poland to come back.
Wow.
Because some of his matches, he was talking about how I think there was were there people from Dagestan there also?
Possibly, people. All around Europe. Yeah.
The whole level of wrestling, especially in Europe, had just gone sky high. And I think whoever your friend is, I remember watching that match because I think it went down to, they both had a negative point, maybe, I don't know. It was a very close match.
Razor close, yeah.
Very close. And all his matches were tough. That weight class is just ridiculous at 77 kilos.
Yeah.
So, but there's another Euros coming up, so he'll be there, right?
That's right, yeah. I think it's in, I might be wrong, Bulgaria. Does that ring a bell? Something like that?
You know, they keep moving. It might be Moldova,
Moldova, maybe.
But I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, it's all.
And I know, and the poor Australians don't know what they're going to do. I mean, nobody. You know, I think they're just out there winging it, hoping, you know, that some of them can't get in the country, some of them can't get out of the country. So, you know, but anyway, yeah, that's interesting because, yeah, Oliver's Canadian and would come down and train at Henzo's, and I met him through Gordon. I have a real strange story about how I got to know a lot of those no-gi grapplers, but I'm friends with Gordon's mom, Gordon Ryan and Nikki Ryan's mother. And so I would go up and I met her like at a competition. And then when he did a seminar, he brought his mom with her and she spent the weekend with me. And so I travel with her a lot. Like I went to Finland for the 2017 ADCC, and I went to 2019 Anaheim. And so I'm kind of like her travel buddy. And so I've like gone to a lot of his stuff as he was going up the ranks, you know, before he became, you know, who he is now, you know. So I've known him for a long time. But a lot of training when it was at the Blue Basement would stay at her house or come over to eat. And a lot of the Canadians, especially because they didn't have him and Ethan Curlinston, didn't have anywhere to stay. So she had an extra bedroom, she had bunk beds in it, and she was just like the jiu-jitsu mom for those guys up there. So I would go up a couple of times and I would actually go up and train myself with them. She doesn't train, but I would go train with them just for the fun of it, then spend the weekend with her. And so it made a lot of really good contacts, and that's how I got to know Ethan and Oliver so well. And so I actually sponsor both of them, you know, as part of my team with Roll Forever. And there's one Canadian that I sponsor that's a very good name, Pierre Olivier Leclerc. And he is from Montreal at TriStar. And he was actually on the Grapple Fest card also. And Nick Ronan was on the Grapple Fest card. So anyway, so I actually flew over and went to the Grapple Fest card. That was the first time I've ever been to England. So that was kind of fun. You know?
That's, you were saying Liverpool, was it?
Yeah, it was in Liverpool, down in, I guess, the district where all the clubs and bars are. I've never seen anywhere where you wake up in the morning, everybody's drinking beer. I guess that's what they do in Liverpool.
Yeah.
I think it's a regional thing, and they're really big football or soccer fans because there was football going on the weekend, and so everybody had on these sweatshirts of their teams, you know, between Manchester and Liverpool, and they were out drinking because there was a game the day before Grapple Fest. So we were kind of in the middle of all that, but that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and hopefully I will get back and get to spend more time. I wanted to go visit some of the gyms in Wales. I think I wanted to go to Ash Williams' gym. I had been communicating with him, and he had invited me to come up, but I wasn't able to go. I didn't realize, you know, on the map, it doesn't look that far, but then when you get there, it really is that far when you take a train. Yeah.
It's about 4 hours from Liverpool to Swansea.
Yeah, exactly.
But as a map, like you say, the UK looks so small, especially to a country like America, or America's massive. It's like, it must take about an hour to get there, but no,
but it had a wonderful train system because it was really easy. We flew into Heathrow and then, you know, and just hopped on a train to Liverpool. So it was very simple, you know, as far as getting around. The transit system I thought was much better than it is in the US because we have so many towns that don't have subways or monorails or things like that, you know, like Los Angeles. That's why the traffic is so bad on the West Coast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I live in like I don't know what you'd call it over in America. Like we call it like a valley or like a village. I don't want to say like up in the mountains, but it's not much around us, you know. So there's no trains by me. Like there's a bus now and again, but that's about it, you know. We'd have to go through. We'd have to go to Swansea. Have you heard of Swansea? That's where Ashley's gym is, down that way. Swansea. That's our city. But it's not a very big city. It's nothing like, you know, the cities in the US.
Right.
That's where we live. So, yeah. So I wanted to say at the start, I probably should have mentioned at the start, Betty, but obviously you started the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at 54 years old.
Yeah, that's
A lot,
correct.
you know, a lot of people, they would never try something. So, you know, they would never try something at that age, would they? They'd be like, oh, well, I'm getting on now. I'm old. I'm just gonna, you know, work and just come home and watch Netflix, you know. But
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
what gave you that like drive to say, you know what, I'm gonna start training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at 54?
I think I think when you hit my profession is pharmacy. I'm a hospital pharmacist, a clinical pharmacist.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that, you know, you do the work, and I guess for my age, a lot of the sports that I did as a young person, when I was young, I played a lot of tennis. And then as a young adult, I played golf. And there wasn't just a lot offered for women at that time. I mean, you know, dancing or ballet, but, you know, then when you become a young adult, and then as you age into adulthood, you have even fewer women that continue to either play golf or play tennis. And I walked and jogged a lot. And it was satisfying, but I just felt like, you know, I'm just not, it just wasn't, it's something you can do alone. And I'm divorced. I've been divorced for over 20 years. So I've been by myself, and I have 2 adult children. And I think about that time my daughter had left high school and gone off to college. And all of a sudden I was home alone and realized that my friends that were my social network were either a book club, or let's get to a wine tasting club, or book club and drink wine, you know, that kind of thing. And I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't doing anything to help me as far as health wise. And, you know, as we get older, metabolism slows down, and being a pharmacist, you don't get a lot of mobility in your job. You stay in like one station a long time. So I really needed something, but I happened to be going, and unfortunately I had, and this is kind of, and I won't go in depth about it, but at this time, at around the age of between 53 and 54, I had a stalker, somebody from work or something that I think it was a disgruntled employee, but anyway, I had a stalker. And it was the kind of thing that it made you very nervous, and you would, you know, you never knew, like I would see this person parked outside my home, and I finally got a restraining order and things like that, and things settled. But I really started thinking, you know, I really need to be able to take care of myself. And I'm not big on guns or anything like that. When I was younger, my ex-husband did skeet shooting with shotguns, like at a range, and I would go with him, but that was the only exposure I'd ever had to a gun. And that really isn't the kind of thing you can carry around with you, you know, when you work in a hospital. So I saw a flyer, I think, where I worked, about self-defense seminar, women's for women. You know, it was a free seminar for women. And this is kind of after the police had, the stalker thing was over. You know, we handled it through the court system, but I thought, God, if that ever happened again, and he ever had gotten into my house or in my garage or something, I would like to be able to at least protect myself. And I'd seen things like this all the time in the newspapers and all, but I'd never taken them seriously. So it heightened my awareness that as a female, and being an older female, I'm vulnerable. So I was going to do this just to go see what it was like. So I go, and there were these guys in these kimonos with black thing. It was like at a community building, and they did it like free. And they told you to wear sweat clothes, and there were about 30 women that showed up, and they did the stuff like the trap and roll, and like the bear hug escape and things like that. And I thought, God, that's pretty easy. Even though I'm older, I can do the same thing these young girls are doing. And so I talked a little bit afterwards, and I said, this is the kind of thing that I want to go here one time. I'm not going to remember this stuff, you know, and I would like to do something like that. And I like the physical activity of like being on these mats. And so I got their card, and of course I know they use that as a marketing tool to bring people into the gym. So I spoke to one of the black belts. He invited me to come by and look, and said, you know, you can do private lessons. There was strictly a jiu-jitsu gym. And so I got on the internet and read about jiu-jitsu, and then read the history of it. And then I found out, oh, it's for like the weaker and people that, you know, help you don't get hit in the face, you know, all these kind of things. I said, you know, this might be exactly what I need. So I went to the gym, made an appointment, went and had they gave me a gi to put on, and I had like a free lesson with one of the instructors, and I really liked it. And he was doing more of the self-defense stuff. And I happened there was a class going on. So he like took me to the door and just let me observe the class. And there were 2 women college age in the class. And I thought, well, that looks like a lot I think I can do those things. And because I was very athletic in high school on the tennis team and softball and, whatever sports I could do. And I ran track too. So I went back and told him I wanted to do something, but I was very shy about being in a group with everybody 30 years or younger. There were a couple of people, maybe mid-30s. He said, well, why about this? Do you want to come and just maybe take 1 lesson a week or something? I said, yeah, that would be good. So I signed up. I said, okay, I'm going to do 8 lessons or 12 lessons. He gave me, and we'll do it every Saturday. So he scheduled it before they had their Saturday morning class. And what he did, he would bring in one person from the upcoming class to be the uke for me. So that way he could teach me, and I had a partner while training. And then he would rotate, and I would meet a different person every week. Well, by the end of my 12 lessons, and I was able to do an arm bar, I was able to do very basic, fundamental closed guard, opening closed guard, and an arm bar, and I had gone through and knew 12 people from the class because he had rotated and made it. And then he said, well, do you want to continue taking, or do you want to come join the group? Because now that you've met blank, blank, blank. I said, well, okay, I think I'll join the group. And it made it, the transition was so easy because when I went to the group for the first time, I knew half the class, and so it made it, slid right in there. And from then it just became like, and it's not an obsession, but the more I learned about it, I would read about it. I liked the history of it. I liked learning different things that you could do. And being a pharmacist, I liked math and physics a lot when I was in college. And I liked learning about how you could take the bones and on a fulcrum, at a certain angle, this will happen at a certain angle. And also being a pharmacist, I studied a lot of physiology. So I knew a lot about the body and about the carotid artery choking and things like that. So it was kind of all very stimulating because it was pulling together a lot of things, from my knowledge base. Not to mention, it started providing me with a social network that I wasn't getting from the wine and cheese club or the book club. I mean, it was it is an intimate sport. I mean, you're very up close, and afterwards you get to know people. And I guess maybe my age, a lot of people go, oh, it would bother me, having somebody on mount with you or on your back or something. And I guess it's never bothered me for the fact that maybe when you're older and you've had 2 babies that you don't have any modesty anyway. I don't know, but it didn't really upset me that much. But I think a lot of women, it does. And I think that is one thing that prevents a lot of women that I've tried to talk into coming to come. So I continued that path and decided, well, so when I would leave class, I noticed a lot of them were staying and training more. And I go, well, why are they saying they're competing? I go, well, I want to compete. They said, well, if you want to, okay. They said, because I noticed that the better people were the ones staying later. Well, I wanted to get good at this. It became to be like a challenge. And I'm one of these people that from an early age, I kind of liked long-term goals. Like in the US, becoming a pharmacist is a 6-year college degree. So I had to go to college 6 years. And then it was like, after I was working full time, I wanted a master's degree in health administration. So I went at weekends and nights for 2.5 years. And I had 2 babies in diapers. My kids are 18 months apart while I was going to school. So it's always like having that something to look forward to that's way ahead. And so I kept thinking, this is great. This is something that I can be around people. I'm single. I could travel. These competitions are out of town. I don't mind driving. And, being older, sometimes they needed chaperones and stuff also when they were driving a whole big group to like a competition that was like an overnight stay.
Yeah.
So I got involved in that. And then, you know, it became like a family. And from then on, you know, I stayed with it, and then it became a purple belt. And then a blue belt, and then started doing no-gi. I guess at maybe almost 2 years, I was a blue belt. And then I started doing no-gi and fell in love with no-gi. I mean, I just thought that was the coolest thing because it just was so hot. You just went so much harder and faster, and the cardio was really good. And you know, you had these people at this time were going to aerobics classes and paying money to jump up and down on a block, and I'm like, all I got to do is go to no-gi and do 5 rounds and I'm good. You know, I don't need that. And my skills were getting better, so I kept competing, and I was competing in gi, and I would go and sign up, and there were always younger women. But so that's kind of the evolution of how it started, as far as like it was kind of, I sought out looking for a way of self-defense, but then I kind of fell in love with the history of the sport and the anatomy of the sport and how it works, and also the social interactions and the friends that I made, because it was kind of like when you were in the mat, nobody cared whether I was 54 years old or that I was a pharmacist or that I had a master's degree. I mean, there were people that were, you know, freshmen in college. There were people that, you know, might be a lawyer. There was somebody over here that might be a plumber or a linesman, but it didn't matter. You know, everybody had a gi on, and we were all choking each other or trying to choke each other. So it was very, very, it's kind of like everybody was welcome. There was no politics, no religion, no biases. And I loved that environment, you know, because you didn't do that. And then you kind of had this camaraderie, as you well know, and it's really, unless you've been involved in jiu-jitsu, I don't think you can explain it, because people that do Muay Thai or a lot of the other martial arts, I don't think they get that feeling. And maybe it's because the intimacy of jiu-jitsu, of how we've all sweated on each other, and you know, and choked each other and all, instead of kicking a bag or hitting each other in the face. There's something about that you can't explain to people in other martial arts. So it fulfilled a need, I think, at that time I had, being like, some people might call it empty nest when both kids are off to college. So I think it was fulfilling a social need that I had also. I don't think I was aware of it at the time, but you know, when I reflect back, I know I was happy there, and it gave me something to do every night, and I was one of the last ones to leave rolling. So, you know, when somebody stays at the party, you're the last one to leave. That means you were having a good time.
Definitely. So did you, like Gordon Ryan and Nikki Ryan's mother, did you know her before the jiu-jitsu world, or did you meet her during when you were training and stuff?
I was actually competing and training, and I think I was at an event maybe on the eastern US, and this was when they were doing gi. I think Gordon might have been a purple belt, or maybe a brown. Yeah, it was long ago. And they were at a lot of these competitions in the US, they're regional, like some of them were called New Breed or Naga, and anywhere there was a competition within 150 miles, you know, our group would pack up and go. And I remember going, and it may have been in Maryland, which was like an overnight trip for our group. And I remember going up and being there in my gi and sitting in the stands. And of course, there was nobody competing my age, but it was like, it didn't matter. I signed up anyway for whoever was in my weight class, and just so I would get a chance to compete. Yeah. And then later I started signing up for other reasons other than that, but that's probably when I was a blue belt, just gotten my blue belt, when I started doing bigger, further away tournaments. And I think she was just in the stands and watching her son. She had driven them there or been with a group. And she spoke to me. She goes, "Oh, do you compete? Because you look about my age or something." Well, she's younger than me, to be honest. She's at least 5 years younger. And we started chatting, and I said, "Do you?" Well, she wasn't dressed to compete, but she had her phone. I noticed she had gotten up recording somebody, and it was really sweet. She told me that both her boys were there competing, and One was a little yellow belt, little plump guy that was a yellow belt or whatever, and then the other one was maybe a purple or brown, maybe he just gotten his brown, maybe purple. He was purple, I think.
Yeah.
And skinny, and Nikki was short and little plump. As the only word I can think of that was proper. And then now, so we exchanged names, FaceTime friends, and I told her, she said, well, next time you come up, why don't you come up and train? I'll get my boys to take you to train, I said, oh, that'd be nice. And so then when Gordon became a brown belt, he was beginning to win a lot of things on the circuit. And I said, why don't you come down and we'll have a seminar for him, and I'll book it ahead of time. I'll get this is when I started doing some of the seminars at different gyms. And I remember my professor at the time had never heard of him because he wasn't real into no-gi. And I said, listen, this guy is like burning up all these like sub-league tournaments that were around New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. And I said, I know you haven't heard of him, but he's really like taking people out. And I said, he's trains with Gary Tonin. Well, he had heard of Gary Tonin because, Gary Tonin had been in ADCC against Crone by then. So he said, okay, if he's somebody that trains, maybe he's good. I'll let you have the seminar here. Okay. So probably maybe 50 people came, and he was a brown belt when I booked it, but I booked it 3 or 4 months in advance. He got promoted to black belt. And then Gary got hurt 2 weeks before the seminar and they were going to drive down from New Jersey to North Carolina, where I was living, and have the seminar. And so 2 weeks before that, Gary Tonin was scheduled to be in the Eddie Bravo EBI Absolute, and he got injured, and Gordon stepped in to take his place. And Gordon stepped in. Nobody had ever seen him on the big stage, and I think that was his coming out party or whatever. And he beat everybody, and all of a sudden he was a household word, and so all of a sudden I had the seminar in 2 weeks for this guy that had just like been on stage in the EBI. And so it's kind of like all the cards kind of fell in place. So he had a big turnout, and for the price of that seminar, you couldn't get a minute with him now. That was years ago, but I think it was 2017 or 18. It's whatever year he got his black belt. So from there, it's kind of like I would go up and train with them, and but I mean, and I liked that because it was the no-gi aspect. I learned a lot more about no-gi and all, but I was still training in the gi myself too. But that's
where's Gordon based now? Where's he based now?
In Austin. Gordon is in Austin, Texas, with John Donna. Yeah. I think their gym is called New Wave, or their affiliation. Oliver Taza's there. John is there. Several others, when they were all in Puerto Rico, they kind of all went separate ways. And then the other gym, I think, is the one that has Craig Jones and Nicky Rod and Gordon's younger brother, Nicky, his brother, and Ethan. Yeah.
The B team, they call that, don't they?
Yeah. B team. Yes.
Well, is it bad blood there, or is it like just mutual? No.
I think everybody had different goals.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't really think it was anything. And I think that the Puerto Rico venture sounded good on paper, but when they got down there, everybody's on island time. They were supposed to build a gym, and they could never get the construction off. They were almost in there a year, and I don't think the first brick ever got laid, and so they were having to train in a borrowed gym around some gym owners, had to drive like 10 miles on these bad, horrible pothole roads, to a small gym, only in the hours provided. And I think a lot of the guys just burned out and just said, this is enough. And there was nothing to do. If you either are really wealthy, there's plenty to do in Puerto Rico, or not. And a lot of the guys that went down there, to do seminars and all, you have to fly back to the US. So it costed more to try to earn money. And so I think it was a lot of things. I don't think it was anybody, specific. I think a lot of people had different values. Their patience began running out, and they want, and I think a lot of them just missed the United States. I mean, or missed being around civilization, because they were living in a paradise. But you think if you live at the beach 24/7 and you don't have any money and all you do is train, it kind of gets old. I mean, at least you want a night off where you could go to a restaurant or go to a movie. And none of them had cars, because you have to have cars shipped there. So only the one or two people that were wealthy enough to buy a car after they got there, they were all like driving in the back of pickup trucks and stuff. I mean, some of the videos they had were hilarious. But I mean, I think it's a phase that they went through, and, people's value systems change. But I think that, it's all going to work out. Everybody's got, but it looks like both gyms are being very successful. Not to mention, Sanji Habera just opened a new gym in Austin.
Wow.
6 Blades, I think. And then there's probably like 10th Planet Austin, Texas is tremendous. That's one of Eddie Bravo's biggest 10th planets. So just Austin has become what in the US, San Diego used to be the big hub. Everybody wanted to go to California because of Mendez Brothers and Atos. Now it's becoming Austin, I think, because so many new gyms have opened there, and there's a lot more freedom with COVID regulations in Texas than there is in California, as far as training and gyms and vaccine things like that. So I think it has kind of, and during COVID, it became a really boom town as far as growth. A lot of things that they missed from Puerto Rico and from living in New York, because New York is very much like California. They still have a lot of mandates and a lot of, mask regulations and, requirements on gyms and things. And Texas, the South is pretty open. Florida and Texas is pretty much, they're not very aggressive as far as policing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's why I think now Austin, which I'm really glad, because Austin's I'm on the East Coast, so it's much easier to get to if I want to go train or go to a seminar or go visit. It's much easier to get to Austin. Plus, it's much easier for them as far as flights going out to teach seminars, because they're real near Dallas, Fort Worth, and they can get to any IBJ, because some of them, now that IBJJF allows heel hooks, a lot of those people are now training heel hooks and doing IBJJF just for the competition experience, not so much for rankings, but because now that they allow heel hooks, it's a really good way to put yourself out there, especially the upper belts.
Yeah, right. How long ago did they bring heel hooks into IBJF?
This is 2021 was the first year.
Oh wow! So last year.
Yeah. In fact, I think it was either in Florida or in there was only 2 or 3 states they could even have, because it was in mid-COVID. And I think Oliver actually did the second heel hook ever in IBJJF history. Somebody else did the first one. One of the people he trained with back in New York got one a different weight class.
Nice.
So yeah, so now they're legal, and no good.
That was game on. And that's what I want to speak to Betty about. Like, you had the opportunity to go with Gordon to Joe Rogan's studio, did you? When he did his podcast?
To Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
No. His mother went with them. I was there with them, but his mother went with him and sat outside. I was at the Who's Number One. We all sat together at that.
Oh, I thought you were in this. I thought you were in the back with in the studio with him.
No. That was just when he had his first podcast with Joe. So I had a photo that his mother took. But no, I sat with them that night at Who's Number One. We which was one of the venues that was put on that same evening after his podcast.
Nice. And he gave you a shout out on his podcast as well last year, didn't he? I saw
that
video.
Yeah, he did. And he did again a couple of weeks ago. He had a lady that's a spear fisherman from Canada. And Valentine Thomas. She's Canadian and from Montreal, but she lives in Florida, and she's very famous for deep diving and spearfishing. And so she was in Austin and was a guest because, you know, Joe Rogan has a lot of the hunting and fishing, you know, because he's very into that. And she's one of the few females in that sport and very good at it, apparently. And I think she was an attorney by profession and kind of threw it away, and then not threw it away, but put it to the side and chased her dreams. And now, like, she's in all these like fisherman magazines and stuff, but she actually goes scuba dives with the harpoon thing that shoots the big tunas and stuff underwater, and bigger than she is. She's a tiny thing, but she actually trained. I think Joe introduced her to Gordon. She went and trained, and he asked her, "How did your training go yesterday?" on the podcast. And she says, "Oh, I really liked it." She says, "But I think I'm too old." He says, "Oh, no, you're not." He said, "Let me tell you about Betty." And sure enough, he pulled up the picture of me and started talking, and she messaged me, which was really sweet, and asked me what was a good gi company, and I sent her a rash guard and shorts and all. So it was really nice that he mentioned me to her, and that she reached out to me on Instagram.
Yeah, oh, brilliant. Like you said, it's all about, like, Joe Rogan's such a big platform, you know, and
it's been a little controversial lately, but you know, I've always listened to Joe for years. I mean, back before, you know, because I've always watched MMA. My son liked watching MMA, so I used to watch it way back when UFC, you know, was in the earlier years, and Joe had hair and was commentating. You know? So anyway, I've kind of known who Joe Rogan was, and now, like you said, his platform has just grown tremendously. And you know, I've been to his comedy shows before whenever he was on tour, and I mean, I enjoy his humor. So anyway, but yeah, he was there, and I think he's very active in Austin as far as like connecting people and helping people get together. Like, think there's another couple of really big podcasts that are out of that area, and I think he introduces a lot of his guests to these people. And I think the town's becoming very well networked and all through that.
No, he seems like that way. Like, you always hear on his podcast, like, say someone's got a bad knee, he'd be like, "I'll hook you up with stem cells. Leave it to me. I'll hook you up." You know, he always hooks people up. You know. Yeah,
he does, and he has contacts, you know, for everybody, for different things too. So, but yeah, I think he's a very likable guy. I enjoy his podcast. I think they're very, if you just open your mind and listen, and just, you know, he asks good questions. He has a good variety of guests. So,
have you trained a Joe, or have you trained Joe? Have you done any rolling with Joe Rogan when you're drilling?
No. Oh no, I've only met him at an event, you know, like 1-to-1 when I was with Gordon and his mother. I've never been in a gymnasium with him. You know?
I saw on your Instagram, I don't know how long ago, but you were with George St. Pierre as well, were you? Do you do a bit of training with George?
Yeah, that was in New York. And that was in when John Donaher was running the Blue Basement classes, when I was up there staying. And I got the chance to roll with him. And then one of the athletes that I sponsor, Pierre Olivier Leclerc, is sort of the head of the jiu-jitsu, the no-gi competition team. He actually made it to the quarterfinals in the East Coast trials, and he lost to William Tackett by points. So he's very good, and he's like kind of the competition team instructor at TriStar. But George goes there weekly and rolls with those guys like 2 times a week. I mean, he does not extra. I mean, you see him every day on his Instagram. He's doing something healthy all the time, but he's usually in the gym at TriStar rolling. And that's where Oliver came from. You know, that's where Ethan Crowenston came from. So a lot of great athletes, you know, come out of that place.
That TriStar is a good gym, isn't it? There's
absolutely. And Canada's really had their hands full with the COVID. They've, you know, it's been bedlam up there as far as their regulations.
What have you got any comps lined up now, Beth, or competitions?
I'm signed up for PANS, the Pan Americans in Florida, which is in April. Or in Orlando, Florida.
2 months away. Nice.
Yeah. not going to Euros. It's just right now it's still, with all this testing and everything like that. I would love to go on, but no one on my team was going. There are very few Americans. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are very few Americans that are even going to be present at it. It's still hard financially and all. You have to get a test and it has to be 72 hours ahead. And then what if you don't get your results? There's just a lot of variables that are preventing people from traveling, and doing that just for one competition. But the Pans are in April. So I'm signed up to compete at Pans. It'll be my first black belt competition.
Oh, nice.
And then I'll be going to, the weekend before that, I will be going to ADCC, the West Coast trials, which will be in Las Vegas. I plan to go attend and watch. I'm going to take the referees course and see if I can't help. Yeah, I don't know how many referees they need, but it sounds like that it's the registration is just, he said it's going to probably be the largest trials ever. And I don't even know. I thought the ones on the East Coast were pretty big.
Wow.
I don't know if you watch the North American.
Well, you wanna do the trials and train to be a ref in the ADCC?
Right. Yeah, I want to be for the trials, a referee right. For the trial, because they have so many matches. And the referees is so different with ADCC because all you do is stand out there and reset them. You don't get a vote. You don't do point. It's not like I've refereed a lot at local tournaments where you're refereeing and giving points and doing the whole thing, and start and restarting the clock. And Mo Jassim and his crew give very good referee courses and test you. And then he has a video on his webpage to watch. And you don't even have to, just so you know the rules, but the referees are mainly people that just stay to make sure once they go out of bounds, you reset them or you prevent them from going into the next mat space kind of thing. And I don't know, I've got some experience refereeing, but I'm going to take the course regardless. And since there's so many people competing, they're going to have space for spectators. So I'm going to go and enjoy that also.
Yeah, definitely. Why not, innit? That's awesome, Beth. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm coming up to, we're coming up to nearly an hour, believe it or not. Time flies.
Yes.
But before you go, have you got any advice to anybody, wants to start something new? It doesn't have to be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it can be anything, doesn't it? But, someone like yourself who's started something new a bit later in life. Is there anything you would like to say to any people?
Yeah, I think that people should kind of take their life and I kind of look at it. I don't want to say like that was, and I think someone else mentioned this, that when people start hitting 54, they start thinking about retirement, or maybe we should downsize and sell our house and buy a condo, or have we bought cemetery plots yet? I'm like, oh my God, I don't, it's like, I'm not through yet. And, you start getting in America, we call it the AARP, the Retired Persons Club. It's like American Association of Retired Persons. You can sign up at 55. And I said, but I'm not ready to retire. I don't want to retire. And I was still working full time, and making a good livelihood. And, my health is excellent. And so I kind of call it like that life after that you have, like when you're an adult. And then people hit the spot where they think they have to start preparing for the termination of their life, where like they start selling things, getting a small apartment, start looking at, well, maybe we need to start looking at residential facilities in case we get older. And I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. I want to get up and be active and stay active. And I think that you have to do that regardless of your age. You have to find something that excites you. It doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It doesn't have to be physical, but it has to be something to keep you motivated to get up every day and to get excited about it. And just because you're 55 years old or you're overweight or you're not good with your voice or you can't dance doesn't mean you can't sign up for dance lessons and get better or join, it's like I've had so many women I've talked to, like they don't want to, well, I'm not in shape for jujitsu. And I go, but you're never going to get in shape. You know, this is what gets you in shape. Or I'm too old. So they can't say that to me. So, you know, I can't, you know, they can't use that excuse. But a lot of people, it's amazing that I have interacted with mothers of people that train at my gym from the kids program on, when I try to get them to join, and they go, I'm just not in shape. And what better way than to just get involved in something to prevent you, whether it's reading or, but to prevent you becoming sedentary as far as your mind, or, and also to allow you to be involved in a community of people, of things that you like, whether it's like people that like to go to comedy clubs or go to a play or go take dance lessons. It's just, don't allow yourself just to sit on the couch and watch Netflix, because the time's going to pass anyway, whether you're active and doing something like learning to sail, go fishing, you know, go visit a park. The time is going to pass, and it's so much more rewarding at the end of the day when you feel the sense of accomplishment. You know, like today I trained, came home, took a shower, did a podcast. I have the sense of accomplishment that I exercised today. I'm going to eat a good, healthy meal, but I feel good. And rather than had I just sat home and watched the soap on the TV or Netflix all day and not gotten up and done something. So yeah, I think it's finding that will to keep going, because it gives you, a lot of people look for, I think, and I find this with my children too, that a lot of people look for instant gratification. You know, they want to feel good instantly. And I think that when you hit a certain age, even as an older adult at 54, 55, people go, oh my gosh, it would take you so long to get a black belt. Well, you know, the thing is, the time's going to pass, whether I'm out there training on the mats or not. I became 65, whether I was doing jujitsu or not, or sitting home drinking wine, watching Netflix. The time's going to pass. So I'm not saying don't sit home and watch Netflix, but you can also add things that will make your life more fulfilling. And I think it was like sort of like an achievement thing, that it's like almost like wanting to get another degree, like I did a college degree or going back and getting a master's. I would see this, oh, black belt, 10 years. Yeah, okay, well, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't. So I didn't worry too much about the color, but before you knew it, I was 63. I passed the 60 mark, but I was still feeling good. And I can tell you what, when I don't train, my body knows it. It's harder to get out of bed. If I go 2 days without training, I'm starting to walk like somebody my age. Now I walk like a younger person because I don't get stiff, but I think it keeps me mobile, flexible, and it keeps and being around young people keeps you young. You know, you learn jokes, you listen to music, you start laughing at TikTok videos. I mean, you start, you know, becoming. I could talk with I have grandkids. I could talk with my grandkids about, you know, songs and things that they saw, like, you know, that they hear, because I hear it when the young people at the gym play it. So I think it's just infusing your life. You know, you're not at the end of your life at 55. Sometimes it's just the beginning. And you know, some people, you know, I think you just have to not be afraid and just put the first step out there. So
I think that's a brilliant message. You know, I couldn't say it better myself. Well, I couldn't even say it better if I tried. It's like someone asked Elton John. I always remember that quote. You know, obviously Elton John, and they were like, "Why are you still writing music? Why are you still singing for?" And he goes, "Once you stop, you die." That's what he said. You know, that was his answer. Like,
yeah,
you know, he's super successful. He's got all the money. He's got everything. He's got the #1 hits, but he's still doing it. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why should you? You know. So.
That's brilliant, Betty. Thank you for coming on. And so don't forget to like and subscribe also, guys, to my YouTube channel, the CD Sport Podcast. I'm also on Instagram as well, the CD Sport Podcast. So spread the word on that one. Spread the love. Thank you, Betty.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I appreciate having to chat with you.
Thank
and you have a good day. Okay.
And you, Betty Broadhurst, everybody. You.